Out and hut. About face. And salute.
Color guard. Oh. Freeze. Colors.
At this time, I would like to invite the 2015 Veterans of the Year, Bob Phillips, the Mount Soledad Memorial Association Veteran of the Year, and Bill York, San Diego County 2015 Veteran of the Year. They will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Bob and Bill, we are honored to have you with us today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Bob and Bill. And now we are joined by Anisha Gwynn, daughter of the late and great beloved Tony Gwynn, and his wife Alicia. Please join in the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much for filling in. Obviously, Anisha did a show. At this time, I would like to invite Chaplain Darcy Pavich to conduct our invocation. Chaplain Pavich is a former trustee with the Mount Soledad Memorial Association and is currently chaplain with the San Diego Veterans Village and coordinator for the annual stand down for homeless veterans. Please welcome Darcy.
Please join me in prayer.
Uncover!
On this Memorial Day, we pause to reflect upon our blessings as a nation and the high cost of those blessings. We thank you for those who have given their lives in service to our country, sacrificing so others may know freedom, sacrificing for us. For some here today, their faces are vivid in their memories. Their names are etched on their hearts. A father, a mother, a sister, a brother, a comrade. May their families and friends be comforted in their sadness. May we honor them in this ceremony. May we honor them by how we embrace the freedom they have secured for us. Amen.
Cover! Cut!
Thank you, Darcy.
Pull out!
Retire to colors.
That's yours. Hand salute. Left face. Left face. Hand salute. Ready, two. Right
Okay, thank
face.
you. Please be seated.
Forward march. March. Left. Keep going. Good job.
It is now my pleasure to be able to introduce our MC for today's ceremony, Mark Bailey. Mark is no stranger to these ceremonies, having joined us in previous Memorial Day and Veterans Day ceremonies. Many of you may recognize Mark as the co-anchor of the popular morning newscast, News in the Morning, on San Diego 6. Please join me in welcoming to the podium Mark Bailey.
Thank you, sir. We've already shared a moment, haven't we? What a pleasure to be someplace where every single person in the crowd still knows the words to the national anthem. Amen. God bless you. And whoever that gentleman was that started us off over there. What an honor, what a pleasure to be up here on this mountaintop today. There's so little that I can add to what is already here. If you've had a chance to walk the walls and look at some of these stories, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I really invite you to do that before you leave here today. Just a great country. And it's an amazing experiment in freedom and democracy that continues on to this day. And to see that the crowds are growing on Memorial Day on Mount Soledad gives me great hope. Because as you all know, especially being in the media, there are times we get a little bit discouraged about what we see out there. Well, it's okay today, isn't it? The stories on these walls are, I can't begin to tell you the spectrum that's represented here. We have the Kristoff family that we're going to be talking about today, which is an incredible story of love and sacrifice, both love of country, love of family. But it's not required, in order for you to be honored on this day, or any day of the year, to have made the ultimate sacrifice. In fact, there are many represented here on these walls that are still living, and we're glad to have them with us. And that's what makes this memorial and this spot so unique. I don't know if you realize, but there are people on these walls represented from every conflict the United States has ever been involved in. And I don't know of another memorial like that anywhere in the country. So appreciate that today, and appreciate where you are. And this is a very special place and a very special day. And I'm so glad to see the crowds continue to grow out here. So, and just thank you for including me. Now, we're going to start here with a wreath ceremony here. We'll bring in the memorial wreath to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. And carrying that wreath are Master Chief Larry Wilski, United States Navy retired, Commander Lou Witherspoon, United States Navy retired, and Mount Soledad trustee. They will present the wreath to Sergeant Major Neil O'Connell, United States Marine Corps retired, and the Mount Soledad trustee, and Master Chief Bill Sturgeon, United States Navy retired, and Mount Soledad volunteer. And that'll be followed by a 21-gun salute by the 5th Marines Support Rifle Detail, followed by echo taps performed by the MCRD Brass Quintet. Gentlemen.
Right. Face. Ready. Shoot. And salute. Ready. Fire. Ready. Shoot. Ready. Aim. Ready. Fire. Ready. Shoot. Ready. Aim. Ready. Fire! Present!
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. All right, now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Colonel Bruce Bailey. We have to explain this every time. No relation. We don't think. United States Air Force retired President and CEO of the Mount Soledad Memorial Association. Bruce has, of course, been a major participant with the association for 15 years. Bruce served as an officer in the Judge Advocate General Corps and began his volunteer work with the Mount Soledad Memorial Association as a flag raiser. He has also risen through the ranks to his current position after being involved in every aspect of the association's work up to the current date. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend, Bruce Bailey.
Well, thank you, Mark. As some of you know, in the past, I never had a brother, but if I could choose one, he'd be the guy. I appreciate his kind comments. Thank you all for coming today. This is quite an interesting and incredible event. And while we're here to honor First Lieutenant Nathan Krisoff, we're also here to honor the service and sacrifices of all of our nation's veterans. We would like to honor all of the veterans today in the audience, and what I'm going to do is ask the Marine Band to play each service's a bit of their music, and what we will do is the first one will be Army. I'd like all those in the audience to please rise, but you're rising not just for yourself, you're rising for all those who were killed in action in your service. So the first service of the United States was June 14th, 1775, Army. Army, please stand. Thank you. Next came the Navy, October 13th, 1775. And very quickly after that was the Marines, November 10th, and again, 1775. And then after that, the Coast Guard, August 4th, 1790. And last, the Air Force. We came along a little later, after World War II, September 18th, 1947. Thank you all very much. I would like, before I go too much farther, to say a special thank you to the people who worked so hard to put all this together. And trust me, it is a lot of work. Special thanks to Denise Larkins from our Mount Soledad office, who has dedicated her recent events, all of her energies toward this. Also to our #1 volunteer, Sean Kelly. He's Volunteer of the Year in 2014, and also to Donna Shuffler, who assisted Denise, and to all of our volunteers. I thank you so much. The Board of Trustees, thank you so much. So let's have a hand for all of these people. And for our ever-present Old Town Trolley. They come year in and year out. Thank you so much. Okay, I'd like to recognize some guests here today, and I'm going to start here on the dais with, as you know, you've already been introduced to Mark Bailey. He will be with you a little later. You've already met Lieutenant Colonel Tony Anthony from Mount Soledad Memorial. He's the Vice President. And then we have our keynote speaker there, Major General Larry Nicholson. Then we have Dr. Bill Krisoff. He's the father of Nate Krisoff. We have Bill Kellogg, if you'd raise your hand, please, Chairman Emeritus of the Mount Soledad Association. And then Christine Krisoff, the mother of Nate. Thank you for coming today, Christine. Lou Scanlon, who's one of our trustees. Lou. Captain Bill Seeley, who will commemorate Nate. Thank you, sir. Chaplain Darcy Pavich. Darcy, thank you so much. I am always amazed and marvel at Darcy's prayers at the beginning of these, and as I did in the last couple of times, Darcy, I'm going to ask you for a copy of that if I could. Thank you. All right, moving on. In the row 2, we have San Diego County Veteran of the Year, Bill York. Raise your hand, please. 52nd Congressional District, Congressman Scott Peters. Scott. And now we move on to the San Diego City Council representative. We have District 1, Sherry Leitner. Sherry, thanks for coming. District 3, Todd. Thanks for coming, Todd. District 6, Chris Cates. Thanks for coming, Chris. And the Mayor of Escondido, Samuel Abed. Thanks, Mayor. I would also like to introduce just a couple people who are in our audience, and I would ask them to stand as I introduce them. If you just hold your applause till the end, we would appreciate it. Chairman of the United Veterans Council, Jack Harkins. San Diego Chief of Police, Shelley Zimmerman. San Diego Fire Chief, Javier Maynard. San Diego Assistant Fire Chief, Brian Fennessy. Good to see you, Brian. And we have the Return to Normandy group sitting over here who come to our events every year. But there's one in that group that I would like to introduce in particular, and that's Bill Galbraith. Bill, if you'd raise your hand or stand up. Bill went back to the 70th anniversary at Normandy last June and was presented by the President of France with the Legion of Honor. So let's have a round of applause for Bill. Bill not only jumped into Normandy, but about in September, he jumped into Normandy in June. They took actually off on the 5th, but they jumped on the 6th. They were up in the night waiting to jump. But he also jumped into Normandy on September 17th, I believe. Correct, Bill? So, thank you very much. Over the last year, we've had a lot of really, really good things happening to Mount Soledad Memorial Association. One of them is that we've waited for years and years to finally get electricity up here. Now, if any of you saw the generator around the corner here, you might be saying, well, why do they have a generator here? I thought they had electricity. Well, we're all plumbed for electricity. We just haven't paid our bill yet to get it open. No, I'm kidding you. We have a couple more small pieces that we need to put together, but everything is here, ready to go. So the next time you come up here, we not only will have the lights here plumbed down here for lighting at night, but we will also have our flag lit at night. So we've been waiting years for that, so we're very, very blessed. Now, one of the people who helped all this electrical thing happen we are grateful to recognize the Ellen Browning Scripps Foundation, which helped provide the funding for bringing the power from down there, the street down there, all the way up here. And I'd like Doug Dawson, if you're here, I believe you are, but I haven't seen you yet today. If you'd stand and wave your hand. Doug Dawson is the Executive Director of Ellen Browning Scripps, and he's with us today. Doug, would you please stand if you're here? Okay, anyway, the thank you is still to you. We really appreciate what you've done for us. It's going to allow electricity, which now we can, instead of having this blue box over here, we can have an electronic information center. We can have lights on the flag. Like I said, we just are so thrilled with all of this. We've also very recently appointed a new executive director, Larry Wilski. Larry's a former Navy type. And many of you may remember and have met Joni Brennan, who used to be with our organization. She was our executive director. Joni is now recovering from some challenging illness issues, and we just want to let her know that we all pray for. We're extremely hopeful that everything goes her way. And so, Joni, I don't think you're here today, but you know that we're with you. Thank you. Another thing, all these flags that you see up here, they are all the flags of Mr. Albert Kapitansky. He brings them up here. He puts them up with his troops. And Albert, thank you for making this memorial for this day a special place with all your flags. Little applause. And the last thing I should tell you is as I said, we've had a lot of great things going on. And one of the things that is going on is that the Board of Trustees is working closely with the federal government and Navy Region Southwest regarding the transfer of this property to the Mount Soledad Memorial Association. We are very hopeful that soon that this will happen, and then we will be able to call it the Mount Soledad National Veterans Memorial. How about that? And the last thing I want to do is just say that all of these walls up here and all of these plaques, you've heard us say this before, but we get no funding from the government. Our organization works strictly on the sale of these plaques, memberships, and donations. And so if you know a veteran and would like to have him or her up here, they don't have to be deceased. They're living and deceased all the way from the Revolutionary War up to the current conflicts. We would be happy and proud to add your veteran to our walls. So thank you very much. I'd like to now invite to the podium, if you could, Sherry, come on up. Sherry Leitner from City Council.
Actually from this district, Bruce. It's great to be here. It's an honor and privilege to be able to present on behalf of the city of San Diego that our council for and on behalf of the people of San Diego does hereby declare May 25th, 2015 to be Mount Soledad Veterans Memorial Observance Day in the city of San Diego. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Sherry. Okay, if I could, Mark, you're back.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Sherry. Now my pleasure to introduce Colonel William H. Seeley III. And Colonel Seeley had been Nate Krisoff's commanding officer in Iraq during one of his 5 command tours, serving as Battalion Chief, 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion, Okinawa, in Iraq from 2006 to 2008. His command tours followed 6 operational tours of duty that included Mogadishu, Somalia, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Eritrea. Colonel Seeley currently serves as the Chief of Staff for Marine Corps Forces Cyberspace Command, and he'll be speaking to the character and the ultimate service to country of this fine young man, First Lieutenant Nathan Krisoff. Colonel Seeley.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the invitation and the welcome. If somebody can't hear me in the back, just start waving your hands. Sometimes I kind of drift away from the microphone. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Krisoff, Mrs. Krisoff, Major General Nicholson, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly an honor to be here today at Mount Soledad, recognizing Lieutenant Krisoff and those here on the wall at Mount Soledad. When I was asked to say a few words about Nathan, I said yes, of course. But ultimately, the more I thought about today, I thought, what can I say in such a short period of time to capture the very spirit that is Nathan Krisoff? Sure, I can say the usual characteristics of all of our servicemen and women and our Marines who serve. Was he a man of strength, integrity, honor, commitment? Was he courageous? Was he professional? Did he have wit? Did he have humor? Yes, he certainly did. He was a man of service. He was a man of service because he believed that the needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few. He served our great nation with dignity and pride. I'm certain that these same characteristics are found in you, all the veterans here today, and those found on this wall. But to really capture the spirit that is Nathan, I have to tell you about a conversation that he and I once had back in 2006. Imagine, if you will, a dusty command post in Fallujah. Operations are ongoing outside our base and in the city and in the region. My reconnaissance platoons are going in and out in their vehicles. The base was a hive of activity. Everybody in the command was rowing and doing their part. He came down to my office to talk about his operations and the intelligence work he was doing. Of course, as a battalion commander, as a senior leader, some of you might understand that any time with your officers and Marines, both formal and informal, are times of counseling. These are opportunities to get to know your men, all in a good way, of course, to see how my officers and men are leading, how they're working with each other, and of course, to see how I can serve them better as their commander. We as Marines pride ourselves in the relationships we have with our men, that of teacher and scholar, that of father and son. This was very important. My time was precious with him. I was busy and so was he, so like most days, we got right to our business and exchanged our tasks and talked about orders and our future operations. But then somehow the conversation drifted, and we started talking about my family. At the time, I myself was a brand new father, deploying to Iraq when my son was only 4 months old. Nathan was inquisitive. He asked about my career path, my parents, where they came from, where did I come from. He relayed some details about his mother and father and his brother, Austin, on his way to becoming a Marine officer at the same time period. We talked about my family. He asked questions about my son's progress. Was he crawling? Was he walking? Was he standing? Was he causing a ruckus? How was my wife holding up with a new baby and me being deployed? He seemed to enjoy listening to me and this proud father talking about my own son and the challenges of being a new parent and being deployed and also being a commander. All this while the war raged outside of our base camp. I share this story because it really defines two elements that I find about his spirit. Yes, he was a man of service, a man who served his community, his schools, his family, his friends, his nation. And it's that service that made him passionate about what he did and what he believed in. But the second and most important part about this incident, this conversation I had with him, was that he genuinely cared for everyone he ever came in contact with. He nurtured it. He relished in it because he was compassionate. He believed in people, and he inspired and instilled confidence in all who he came in contact with. For me, knowing Nathan reinforces that we serve not for things, not for glory, not for praise. We serve because friendship and the bonds of brotherhood and our love for one another are the most important things that we share. Christine, we spoke a little bit last night about Nathan. I look back on that conversation today, and I have to ask myself who was really being counseled and who was doing the counseling. I am humbled to be here today to share in this ceremony as we honor Nathan and those other veterans on this memorial. Thank you, Dr. and Mrs. Krisoff, Major General Nicholson, ladies and gentlemen, and honored guests. I remain forever in your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Seeley. I would now like to invite Bruce Bailey and Dr. and Mrs. Krisoff to the lower level here to unveil a replica of the plaque honoring Nathan Krisoff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Major General Larry Nicholson, Commanding General, 1st Marine Division, Camp Pendleton. General Nicholson has commanded at every level, from platoon commander to division commander. He has served as a staff officer and commander in combat. His combat tours took him to places like Fallujah and Al Anbar Province, Iraq, Marjah in the southern Helmand Province, Afghanistan. He has served in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Marine Divisions, but has spent most of his time in the Great Blue Diamond Division. Please join me in welcoming Major General Larry Nicholson.
Okay, folks, I'm going to get out from behind the podium and move into a better field of view here, so I can see and make sure everybody's paying attention. Maybe a quiz after the brief here. Hey, what an amazing location! What an amazing crowd! It is truly an honor to be here today. Distinguished guest privileges, and for the Kristoff family. A little more about the Kristoff family later, but I am connected forever with this magnificent family. And if you don't know the story of the Kristoff family, you will before you leave here. And it's a story I hope you tell your friends, your neighbors. It's a story that every American, frankly, should know. It's a story that was featured by Howard Schultz of Starbucks on a recent book called For Love of Country that became a bestseller. And we'll talk about it in a moment. But first of all, I want to welcome you to Decoration Day. It's called Decoration Day. The year was 1868, 3 years after the bloodiest war our country has ever had. 1868, the wounds were still pretty raw. The feelings between North and South were still pretty tough. And it took a Union general by the name of James Logan in Washington, D.C., who commanded what they called the Grand Army of the Republic, which was really an alumni association of all the Union soldiers. And what General Logan noticed in his travels around the country was that Union graves and Confederate graves were falling fallow. The ravages of time and weather had taken their toll. They were overgrown, they looked bad. So he took it upon himself. And he issued a letter on May 5th of 1868 that said, I proclaim May 30th of 1868 to be Decoration Day. I want to empty the churches, I want to empty the schools, I want to empty the homes. I want Americans from all walks of life to go to our cemeteries and honor our fallen. Union or Confederate, honor our fallen, clear off the graves, make them presentable. Make them places of honor. Bring them back. And so it was. And so across our country, it started. All the way until World War I, where after World War I, it changed and Decoration Day became a day not just for Civil War veterans, but for fallen from all of our wars. And it stayed that way until 1966, when Lyndon Baines Johnson, the president, declared it Memorial Day. But it would fall during the week, as you know. It fell on a Tuesday or a Saturday, and I grew up as an elementary school kid during that time frame. And I grew up in the D.C. area, and I remember vividly my 3rd grade class going to Arlington Cemetery and walking as a class, going to the tomb of the unknown soldier, and then finally to the eternal light that was John F. Kennedy's gravesite. And I remember how powerful it was even as a young elementary school. In 1971, President Nixon changed it to make it a Monday, make it a 3-day weekend. Hey, who doesn't love 3-day weekends? We all love 3-day weekends. There's not a Marine here, or anywhere, or sailor, soldier, everybody loves a 3-day weekend. But I fear that somehow maybe we've lost something. We've lost something. So I'm going to have a homework assignment for everybody here before you leave. But I am currently assigned as Commanding General of the 1st Marine Division, Camp Pendleton. What an incredible honor. 23,000 Marines and sailors. 23,000 Marines and sailors. We're today in about 14 countries, changes a little bit, 14 countries. A third of my force is gone at any one time. A third is getting ready to go, and a third just came home. That's a pretty extraordinary turnaround. The world is still a very dangerous place. Now, whether you're a Marine, sailor, soldier, airman, or Coast Guardsman, that op tempo is still very real, and it impacts not only our servicemen, but of course the great families. Not too many years ago, I served with a great Marine in a place called Fallujah called Nate Kristoff. Nate Kristoff was an intelligence officer working for Colonel Bill Silly in 3rd Recon Battalion. And I still remember the day in December of 2006 when I was notified that we'd lost a young Marine. I wrote a letter to the family, as I did. I wrote him at night after memorial services. I used to wait about a week. I used to make our Marines wait a week before we had memorial services. Because if you had them too soon after the loss, they were more mean-spirited. They were about, we're going to go back and we're going to get them. And after about a week, you saw the ceremony was more about the Marine, about the sailor, the soldier, the airman. It was more about the personality. And we would get his friends and teammates to talk about him. And I would sit there and I would take notes, and that is the night I would write the family. So I wrote a note to the Kristoff family, as I always did. And I got about 10 to 15% returns, which I expected. But this one letter was unusual because it came back from Truckee, California, and it said, hey, Colonel Nicholson, thanks a lot for your letter. I appreciate the letter. Hey, by the way, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I got a pretty good practice here in Lake Tahoe, and hey, you know what? I'd kind of like to serve. But by the way, I'm 61 years old. So I wrote a letter back and said, hey, dear Dr. Kristoff, thank you for your interest in government affairs. You're already serving. You're serving your community. He was the orthopedic surgeon to the U.S. Olympic ski team there in Tahoe. Hey, you're doing great things for your country. Thank you. But I don't think we're going to be looking for 61-year-old sailors anytime soon. Undeterred, President Bush, much like President Obama does today, travels around the country and he talks to Gold Star families at locations. And on this one particular location in Reno, Nevada, President Bush said, hey, Bill, Kristoff, is there anything I can do for you or any of the other Gold Star families? Bill and Christine were there. And Bill said, well, Mr. President, since you're asking, I've gone to my recruiter, I've done everything I can do, but they don't seem to be interested in a 61-year-old sailor. And the president said, you know, Bill, you're 61 years old. I'm not sure that's a great age to start a military career. And Bill looked at President Bush and said, well, frankly, Mr. President, I'm younger than you are. A couple days later, General Peter Pace, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, for Karl Rove and a couple others, but at the end of the day, about 3 days later, I think what they told him is, hey, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you told the president, but we're gonna vet you. We're gonna see if you say who you are, if you are who you are, and we're gonna take a look at you. Bill was commissioned a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Medical Corps, and I ran into him in Iraq, where I'm sitting at chow one day, and somebody taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and there's a guy with a grin on his face, wearing lieutenant commander insignia. And it was Bill Kristoff. Bill Kristoff served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Bill served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I know for a fact in Afghanistan, he was there during some of the most egregious and difficult times of the war. And his medical skills, I am confident, and I know it, saved the lives of Marines, sailors, soldiers, Afghans, and civilians. And not only was Bill serving, but and of course we lost Nate, but their other son, Austin, joined the Marine Corps. And poor Christine, I don't know how you got through all that, but you know, it's one thing. And what's incredible about this story is that it's one thing for a son to follow in his father's footsteps. I mean, history is replete of examples of that. But how many times do you see a father follow in the footsteps of his son and follow him into combat? And so I think this is a story that just defines this family and is a story every American should know about. God bless the Kristoff family. Thank you. would like, for a second, just to recognize, I realize Memorial Day is really dedicated and focused on our fallen, but I would like to honor some of our veterans here. Could I have all my World War II veterans please stand or raise your hand? Please, let us see where you are. If you are a World War II veteran, our Korean War vets. If you're a Korean War vet, same thing. Please either stand, be acknowledged, be recognized. Thank you. Where are my Vietnam veterans, please? For my Vietnam veterans, again, our nation owes you a debt of gratitude we will never be able to repay. The way you were treated when you came home was shameful. And I think I can say that we are a learning organization as a nation. Because for the last 15 years, you could agree or disagree with the war. And that's okay. There should be a national debate when we send young men and women to fight. But never, ever blame the young men and women that you send off to war. And I think we've learned tremendously from that. Where are my Desert Storm vets? Any Desert Storm vets in the house? All right. Thank you for your service. Any Somalia vets in here? We do. Look at this. Excellent. And last but certainly not least, our veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan in the last 13 years. Please. You know, we're losing today. It's been pretty well publicized, but we're losing about 400 to 500 World War II veterans a day across our nation. And this trend is not slowing down. It's continuing. And that's a tragic loss. And I know that this incredible greatest generation that was raised in the throes of the Depression formed a nation, industrial might, that was able to take on both Germany and Japan and defeat those powers and then rebuild those very foes into competitors and build their economies while continuing to build the strongest economy and strongest nation in the world. We will always be indebted to this incredible generation. But I got to tell you, over the last 13 years, I've seen the emergence of a new greatest generation. Young men like Nathan Kristoff. Nathan didn't need to join the Marine Corps. Nathan went to a prestigious Eastern university. He had a world full of options in front of him. But just like the young men and women after Pearl Harbor who raised their hand and enlisted and joined the armed forces, after that attack on 9/11, there was an impact across this country on our generation. And we saw young men and women that would never have probably even considered service in the military stand up and raise their hand. Men like Nathan Kristoff, who said, "If not me, whom?" Nathan Kristoff didn't need to be a Marine, but the Marine Corps needed Nathan Kristoff, that's for sure. And it is today you should feel very honored of the young men and women that wear the cloth of our nation. But there is an alarming statistic that I want you to know about. We are now at a point in our nation, the lowest percentage ever of young men and women that have ever served in our nation. Less than 1% of all Americans today are either in or have ever worn the cloth of our nation. It is the lowest percentage in the history of our nation. And it should give us some pause. Now, we've been able to fight the last 13 years of war without a selective service, without a draft, and that's great. But my concern today is the distance that we have between mainstream America, our communities, and those that serve. If you talk about Memorial Day to most people, it's the first day of summer. Hey, that's great. Who doesn't love that? It's sales at the mall. It's beaches, it's ball games, it's Rolling Stones concerts at Petco Park. It's great. There's all kinds of great things to do here on Memorial Day. You know, I've asked a lot of groups to stand today, but I bet if I ask a group to stand today or to stand right now that had no connection to the military, if I ask people right now, you have no one that you love in the military, you have no one that you're here to honor from being in the military, I bet it would be a pretty small crowd. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the problem. My challenge to you is we need more people. I'll disagree with Mark Bailey. Mark said, hey, we got a great turnout. Folks, this ain't a great turnout. This is about 800, 900 people. We ought to have 20, 30,000 people here. We really ought to. We ought to have 20, 30,000 at a minimum. So my homework assignment in closing to you is this. Next year, grab your neighbors. Grab your church. Grab your soccer team. We got a baseball team. Grab friends and family. Grab people that have no connection to the military at all. Grab people that maybe don't even know a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine. Maybe they have a distant grandfather that served. We've got to do a better job of reconnecting mainstream America with those who serve. We've got to do a better job of making these events more than just family gatherings of those who are in uniform. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my request to you. It is an honor to be here today. I'm honored by your presence, but we can do a lot better, and I know you'll help me do that. We just need to continue to get the word out and push, because this is an important day for our entire nation, not just those of us in uniform or those connected to someone in uniform. So, ladies and gentlemen, God bless each and every one of you. Semper Fidelis, happy Decorations Day, and thank you for being here.
All right, folks, you can go ahead and be seated and relax here for a couple of seconds. Now, we've got a little treat for you here before we wrap up today, but with the cloud cover and so forth and just trying to work out the timing just perfect for you, I'm going to mix things up just slightly here for the next couple of seconds, but the program will be exactly the same time and length, so don't think we're actually stretching and trying to kill time here. We're not. I just want to remind you again about these plaques here, and if I could just share my personal experience about this with you and how easy it actually is to honor somebody with a plaque here. My concern originally when I was approached by the Mount Soledad Veterans Memorial Association and asked if I would like to honor my father with a plaque is I said, well, you know, my dad's still living. They said, that's great. We love that. We'd love to honor people while they're still alive. More the better. And I said, well, you know, he didn't see combat. He wasn't a war hero, and there's just so many great stories up here. And they said, nah, that's you're missing the point. That's not what this memorial is all about. It's about service to God and country and to our fellow man. And anybody who's worn the uniform of this country is welcome. If you've served honorably, you're welcome here on Mount Soledad. Well, that opens up a whole world of possibilities. My concern after that was that I hurried to get my plaque up there before everybody else realized that. Because once these walls are full, you don't quite know what we're going to do, and you know how they are filling up. So I would really encourage you. My father is over here on the wall, right over here now. He's still very much alive, and what an honor and a pleasure to be able to bring him up here and say, Dad, thank you for your service. He's one of those guys that didn't see combat, but he put on the uniform. He says, if you need me, I'm ready to go anytime, and I want to serve my country. So again, it applies to anyone and everyone who served this country. So please look into that. Look into honoring a loved one with a plaque. And we've even got folks up here who entire families are represented up here. I think, don't we have like a mother and a father and a son or daughter or something? It's a full combination like that up here on one plaque. Just incredible. So there's a lot of different things they can do. They can work it out all kinds of different ways. But it's just a beautiful thing. And then they have a nice little ceremony that they like to do to honor that person in person if they're still alive, and to be able to do that for them. So give that some serious consideration. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, spread the word on that. And as far as what happens with this monument in the future, what you need to know is that these plaques, no matter what else happens here, these plaques will be here forever. And you may see other changes at some point in the future as the political tides ebb and flow, but these plaques are here forever and here to stay. So know that, and don't be confused about that when people say, well, you know, well, what happens in the courts with it? Forget all that. None of that means anything to us right now in this conversation about the plaques, all right? All right, if I could do this, if I could have Lou Scanlon come up. Now, the program is not over, but I need Lou to make his closing remarks here just prior to our little treat for you here at the end, and then the timing should work out just perfectly. So, Lou, if you could, don't tell everybody thank you and goodbye, okay? And then I'll come up and explain. We've got a flyover scheduled for you, and the aircraft is getting into position right now.
Thank you, Mark. Actually, my position in the program is to say thank you and goodbye. So I'll do my best. It is my honor, on behalf of the Mount Soledad Memorial Association, to thank the Krisoff family for their incredible example of what service to our nation really means. Our elected officials, General Nicholson, and whoever put me in the program after General Nicholson, don't ever do that again. The Marine Corps for providing our brass quintet, color guard, and rifle detail. Mark Bailey. The Old Town Trolley, whose drivers will shuttle you to our off-site parking areas, and all of the staff and volunteers that have assisted us today. But most of all, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to visit the memorial and honoring the veterans that have given all of their tomorrows so that we can have our todays. The memorial in front of you is unique. We honor all veterans, living and deceased, from the Revolutionary War through the current war on terrorism. Its operations are supported solely through plaque sales, memberships, and donations. You can help. There are tables at the rear and volunteers able to assist you with plaque purchases, memberships, and donations. And ladies and gentlemen, I think that the timing is just about right for our flyover. If you would look toward the west, you will see our T-34 Memorial flyover.
It's a little more interesting when the cloud cover's lower, isn't it? Let me just tell you, the team today was led by Navy veteran John Flippen, flying his T-34. His wingman, Dr. Curtis Stennis. Dr. Stennis performing today in that vintage Nanchang C-76A Chinese Air Force military trainer. The number 3 aircraft, a 1985 Yak-52, flown by Todd Bowman. And the number 4 aircraft is a 1991 Yak-52 flown today by its owner, John Warwick. I didn't even see if they were able to perform the missing man formation, but I think you all know what that's about. The lights and the smoke on the number 3 aircraft are turned off. The pilot pulls up and away from the formation, signifying the reluctant departure from Earth of another brave warrior and the return of his soul to God's gift of eternal peace in heaven. So we certainly thank the members of that team for their participation today. Now, they will make another pass and they will perform that missing man formation for you. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, the San Diego Salute Flyover Performance Team and your missing man formation.
Thank you. Please take your seats. I, like General Nicholson, will also assign some homework. I would urge you to tell people about the time you spent here today. Visit the memorial in the future. Bring your children and your grandchildren. Visit the plaques and pass on their stories so that future generations understand who provided the protection and freedoms that they enjoy. If you are able, please stand, and with the Marine Corps Recruit Depot Brass Quintet, we will close with singing God Bless America. Please join in. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean where it flows. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean where it flows. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. Thank you, and may God truly bless our nation, our veterans, and our active duty military members, and all of their families. Thank you for attending.
Great job.
Thank you, sir.
Jordan, that was super. I love the brass quintet.
Here we are.
The rest you got.